Hello and welcome to yet another new episode of The Frontline on your #1 TV channel, ParastatalTV. I am your host, Mugure Kamau. Now today I am pleased to have with me the Vice President, African Leadership and Reconciliation Ministries, Alam Dr. Ndai Saba, as well as the Kenyan Director, Sami Linge, who will be joining me later in the show. Alam happens to be an African-based organization that focuses on equipping leaders with the skills and knowledge to transform their communities. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Carol.
It's an honor to have you with us. Briefly, I would love you to tell us who is Alam Kenya. Give us a brief background of Alam Kenya and what you do.
Alam Kenya was created some 20 years ago, and it happened actually to be the mother of all other Alams we have in Africa. So Alam chapter started here and expanded its work in various countries we are currently in East Africa and Central Africa. And we do the Ministry of Reconciliation, of Relationships. We do develop servant leaders, and we help these leaders. Actually, we equip them to do transformation within their community. That's the work of Alam Kenya.
When did it start?
It started some 20 years ago here in Kenya, in Nairobi. And it was started by a Rwandan pastor who had a passion for the work of the Ministry of Reconciliation. And in fact, this was in response to the crisis of genocide in Rwanda in 1994. As we all remember, the country went through genocide. Quite a number of pastors were killed. Many others were now in exile. Missionaries had ran away, went back to their countries, and the church in Rwanda was desperate for leaders. And that's where Dr. Musekura got this passion to make sure he responds to the crisis and enter into actually to fill the gap of having Christian leaders who can take over the work of the ministry in Rwanda.
So Alam happens to have trained over 100,000 people, which is quite a good job there. And what does an individual require to become a trainee of Alam?
For someone to be a trainee of Alam, it doesn't require much, like many other training where they ask you for a diploma or a certificate or something. We just need people who are in leadership in various roles. And particularly our passion is for the grassroots leaders, those who are leading their communities, those who are leading women groups, those who are leading youth groups, those who are leading churches. Whoever is in the leadership at the grassroots level, those are the people we are targeting so that we equip them with the right tools and skills to make sure we have the right leadership in the place to take up the ministry.
And most of the countries that you serve happen to have had war, tribal conflict, or genocide. And what are the mitigation factors that the organization is putting in place to just avoid war before it happens?
It is so unfortunate that this ministry started in response to a war. But as time goes by, we have learned several lessons that we need to apply on the ground to help people not to have war, because no one is happy to be responding to the crisis of war. And we are trying, we do our best to make sure we put in place leaders who can prevent that. And those are servant leaders. You need to actually recall that many crises we have around us are not just self-generated. Most of the time we blame the communities. But you realize it's not the community, it's the leaders. Whenever we have Christ-like leaders in place, servant leaders, those who are who are not selfish, who are not looking for the interest, and look for the interest of their communities, their churches, their countries, those leaders will definitely prevent war. So what we are doing is to make sure those various leaders at the grassroots level are trained, are aware of this, and are given the right tool to make sure they lead on the front, to make sure people are taking steps ahead. We are doing this for youth. Youth are most of the time misused during this kind of crisis. And we are creating awareness among youth and training them not to be misused, but rather to think ahead of time that these are the leaders of today and tomorrow, and they have to make sure there is a peaceful environment in their place. The leaders we have currently, we also help them to understand there's nothing anybody can gain from war. Yeah. It's a terrible thing. It affects all of us. And as some of the leaders have already said, no one can predict the outcome of war. So the best way is to prevent by having a clear leadership which put the interest of the community ahead of any other interest. That is what we do at Alam.
And one of your greatest roles is to impact these good leaders through Christian values. And you happen to be in eight countries in Africa, right?
Yes.
And we have, for example, South Sudan, which I believe there are Muslims there. What role do you play with such countries where we have Muslims?
In fact, the country which is more of Muslim, where we work in Africa, is in North Sudan, where the whole government is a Muslim. So what we do, one of the things we do is interfaith dialogue. We make sure people from different faith background can sit down and talk to each other. In the first place, all those religions, when you look at them and you go into their fundamental books, they talk of peace. And you even wonder why this animosity and the conflict between faith are coming from. So we sit with them and we reason with them based on their own books. If it is Muslims, we base on the Quran. The Quran has quite a number of texts speaking about peace and how people can be living peacefully. And much of what we do is interfaith dialogue. That's the major work we do. And we reach out where we bring Christians, we bring Muslims together and other faiths to make sure people can talk and see this beauty of diversity rather than looking at it on a negative note. So we do organize conferences, we do organize workshops with interfaith groups, imams and the pastors and the bishops sitting together and looking for the interest of their communities, their followers, actually, and their nations. And that is what we do in North Sudan. That is what we do in Dar es Salaam. That is what we do in Zanzibar. Those places where there is not necessarily predominance of Christian, but there is so many other faiths.
Okay. And so what are some of the challenges that you face, for example, in these countries?
Some of the challenges you face in these countries is where you find these groups have never sat together. So you are initiating something new, which they can't even think of. But we use our own experience and our own strategies to make sure we talk. First of all, a group, we visit their respective groups, we talk with their leaders, and once we convince the leaders what we are looking for, now they can be able to mobilize their followers to come together. Some of the challenges mainly is because themselves, they never had any such initiatives, and they can't even think it's working, it's possible, and when we do it, at the end, everybody is happy and even astonished that it's possible that people from various faiths can sit down, talk, have a common ground of understanding without necessarily fighting.
Yeah. And war happens to be not only in Africa, and so the skills that Alam offers are needed worldwide. What are the plans for Alam in working with other countries?
Actually, it's not about the plans for the future, it's the plans already in place, because we attend various global summits all over the world, in Asia, in America. We happen to be having partnership with various global organizations, institutions of higher learning, where we go and share our experiences with those other leaders across the globe. So it's not about what we do here in Africa, it's just going out and sharing the experience. And again, because we already have 20 years experience in this, we have developed curriculum. We have written books which can help various groups all over the world. We share this knowledge. We can sell the knowledge to them. We can go and impact this knowledge across the globe as we attend various global meetings.
That has been the Vice President Alam, Mr. Dai Saba. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll have the Kenya Director, Sami Linge, with us. Stay tuned.
Parastatal Africa magazine is a media platform that enables African state corporations to share development projects and experiences, both through the printed and internet editions, covering the news and future events, pictorials, products and services, among others. We are keen on bridging the communication challenges that have existed between the public and state corporations. We seek a common ground where government, parastatals and the various publics can share and work together with the aim of transforming our continent. Our vision is to be the leading and most reliable avenue for Africa's state corporations and connecting with the public in service delivery. Currently, we have pilot offices in Uganda, Tanzania, Botswana, South Africa and Nigeria. Parastatal Africa magazine, connecting Africa state development.
Welcome back. Thank you for keeping it ParastatalTV. This is The Frontline. I am Mogoreka Mau. Now, earlier on, we had the Vice President Alam with me here in studio. And right now, I have the country's director, Dr. Sami Linge, who is going to tell us more of Alam's mandate in Kenya. Thank you so much for honoring this invite. How many trainees have you managed to train based in Kenya?
We've been in Kilifi, we've been in Kajiado, we've been in Mount Elgon, we've been in Eldoret, we've been in Kisumu area, meaning Nyanza area, place called Awasi, and many other places.
Now, Kenya had been one of the most stable countries until 2008, where we had the post-election violence rocking the country. What role did Alam play in bringing back Kenya to where it was?
We did a lot of trainings, calling people together. We normally bring different leaders. We particularly believe that much of the problems are brought by lack of good leadership. Therefore, we focus mainly in training leaders, helping them to know how to go to their communities, speak to them, encourage them to be peaceful people. And therefore, what we have done is brought leaders together. We conduct multi-ethnic trainings, gender-sensitive trainings, men and women. We also make sure that youth are involved. And where there are communities that are across the religious divide, we also bring different religious groups, not leaving behind the traditional religious groups, which are in many times ignored by many groups.
How close do you work with the government?
Whenever we go to a place, we involve the administration. Like we have trained in some of our trainings, we have involved the police, we have involved the administration, we have involved the district peace committee chair people, and therefore we have worked closely with the government. We have visited even in Kilifi where we are in plenty, or we have done a lot of work. We have even visited the office of the deputy governor. We we have discussed, or now we can deal with a few issues that are causing concern, particularly the danger being faced by elderly people, thought to be actually witches or wizards. And therefore, we are working closely with the government. Yes.
And what role is ALAM playing in Kenya to make sure that whatever happened in 2008 does not happen again?
We go to the different places. We sensitize the people. For example, in 2013 election, when we were waiting for the elections, we went to Molo. We trained the people there. We sensitized them. We went to Kibera. We trained like 150 leaders. Then we had a caravan that is nailed along the streets of Kibera. If you don't think Kibera has streets, just go there and you'll find them. We had a Kanda truck because the big ones could not go around. We motioned more than 200 pastors. We stationed them in different places and spoke about peace. Different pastors of different communities spoke to communities which were different from them, just to tell them we are one Kenya, we are one people, we have one nation, we should exist in peace. We also went to Morelgon and moved around that place, also sensitizing them about the same. And you remember, as we were approaching, there were also fracas in Tana River. We also went to Tana River. We had an inter-religious, inter-tribal dialogue concerning the same.
And what are the future plans in regard to Kenya with ALAM?
We still plan to continue talking to Kenyans about peace. We plan, first of all, to visit places where there are pastoralist-related conflict, because that's an area where Kenyans don't take a lot of note. We have good intention to go to Pokot, Sesamburus, the Turkanas. We want to loop even to think about the northeastern Kenya. We also want to think about the Ormas and the Pokomos. And we're also interested in the whole of the Kenyan coast because of radicalization of the youth. In one of our strategic plan items is the cost.
Okay. What are some of the challenges that you face in trying to equip these leaders with the necessary skills?
I think one of them is coming from the way peace has been approached. Peace has been approached like something that should be done by some people from outside the country. When people hear about organizations and the non-governmental organizations, they think of people from the West. Because we are a highly African organization, they don't understand us. And because we also want this to be Africans by Africans for Africans, the people have been given this kind of notion that whenever they come to think about peace, they should be given tokens to go home. Somebody should bring them in. Somebody should take them home. To break that kind of approach, to tell the people, it is your peace, and it should be homegrown. That has been at all older. So other challenges are just to tell the people, we need to use our own resources to build, to construct our own peace. Because it looks like people are thinking somebody will come, bring resources for us to build our peace. But we are saying we must, as Kenyans, find solutions to our problems. Also to help people to know how to dialogue. People are used to talking at loud voices to one another, but to sit down, help them to speak together, that's also another big problem. But we are doing the best we can to help Kenyans know how to dialogue, because dialogue is something looking to be foreign to Kenyans.
Okay, just a quick one now as we wind up. I would love you to face this camera and just give 1 or 2 words to Kenyans.
I think Kenyans, we must know that this is our country. We must know that although we are many tribes tribes can be an asset. Tribes do not have to be a liability. We need to use it for complementarity, not for competition, not for fighting one another, but for making one another strong. And for the leaders, we want to lead, not to mislead. We have misled many times. We have told the people what they are not supposed to hear. And so let us provide leadership and not mislead people.
Thank you for keeping it ParastatalTV. Welcome back. You're watching The Frontline on ParastatalTV. I am now joined by Abigail, representing Alam Kenya. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Would you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Carol. My name is Abigail Macheche. I work for Alam. Alam stands for African Leadership and Reconciliation Ministries. I am the coordinator of community transformation, the Kenyan chapter.
How does Alam do community transformation?
Alam gets involved in community transformation in dynamic ways. One of the things that Africa is facing is not HIV. The biggest problem is not HIV. It is not malaria. It is actually conflict. So when people fight over resources, the communities don't see eye to eye. When you look at the West Pokot region, you look at the northern parts, most of the conflicts we experience in these areas are because of the lack of the resources that people are fighting over. And so when we're doing community transformation, we want to come into the community, train the leadership first of all, because Alam exists to build bridge builders. Meaning, when you train a leadership, they offer leadership to the community. And when they stand and offer leadership to the community, we bring reconciliation. That is peace building. So that this community is able to stand with this community, so that together we're able to build the resources we need and the community moves. So for us differently, what we do differently as Alam is we embrace community transformation in that we bring in leadership development. And then after leadership, we have trained the leaders. They know what is important to be a leader, to lead in front instead of coming from behind. We want them to be at the forefront in telling people there are things that we need to do as a community. And then they come together, they reconcile, and then it is a bottom-up approach. They come and see the needs that are in the community, look for the ways that they're able to meet the needs. And so as you only come to give capacity building, to support the initiatives that the community is already doing so that it is sustainable. What we want to come from is the notion of serikali's idea, because that's what people want. They want to be helped so that they come out from their responsibility. They don't want to take the responsibility to grow their communities. So as Alam, we come and train. We give capacity to the community. We work with women, we work with youth to give them the ability to have a source of income so that they have dignity. They have a source of livelihood. And when they have a source of livelihood, everybody takes care of their own initiatives. And so they also reach out to another member of the community. And when you're having a business, for example, you're not only selling to one community, you are selling to a diverse of people in the community. So when you're talking about community transformation, it embraces leadership, it embraces peace, it embraces development.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how is community transformation related to peace building?
Carol, just the way I have put it across, that we are a bit different from other organizations, the way they come and just, what is the need here? They drill a hole, a water source, a borehole. What we do is we bring in peace, that this borehole is not only bringing water to this community, but it is bringing other people, ethnic backgrounds, tribes to come together so that they can come together and share in this borehole that we are talking about. So peace is a very important component in community transformation. And as I said before, many people think that what Kenya is suffering from is poverty. What we are suffering from is health diseases. Yes, but if you go to the root cause, it's because we are not sharing. These resources are there in the community, and the communities are able to stand up on their own, identify the needs, and only just need a very slight boost, and you see these communities flourishing.
Thank you so much, Abigail. It was quite informative. Well, you've all heard it. The biggest challenge in Africa, it's not HIV and AIDS. It's not malaria. It's not poverty. And this is where Alam comes in solving these issues in Africa. Don't touch that dial. Keep it. ParastatalTV. We'll be right back.
Je, wajua ni nani anayehifadhi maji unayoyanywa? Ama anayesimamia ujenzi wa barabara nadhifu unazotumia? Matibabu ya bure hospitalini? Au anayehakikisha kuwa unapokea nguvu za umeme bila tatizo lolote? Pia kuzingatia usalama wako kama mwananchi. Jarida la Parastatal Africa linakuletea ufumbuzi huu wa jinsi mashirika ya kiserikali yanavyokujali wewe mwananchi. Ukuaji wa jarida la Parastatal umekuwa mwendo wa kasi mno, huku likionekana kupokelewa vyema na washikadau wetu wa humu nchini na kimataifa. Ni jarida ambalo limejizatiti katika kuyaleta pamoja mashirika ya kiserikali pamoja na mashirika ya umma na kuangazia pakubwa mchango wa mashirika haya katika kuinua maisha yako mwananchi. Katika kupanua usomaji wa jarida letu, tunawafikia wateja katika nchi za Uganda, Tanzania, Botswana, Afrika Kusini na Nigeria. Isitoshe, tunakuwezesha kuzipokea habari zetu kupitia njia ya mtandao yakiwemo Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp na YouTube. Na hata kupitia katika tovuti yetu ya www.parastatalafrica.com. Ili kuielewa serikali yako na mchango wake katika kuboresha maisha yako, soma jarida la Parastatal Africa.
Welcome back. We are glad to have another expert from Alam, Kenya, Mr. Peter Nduruto, who happens to be the coordinator, Peace, Building and Reconciliation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us. Now, I want you to take us briefly through the process of peace and reconciliation, having in mind that the people you train are people who have gone through some maybe really bad experiences in the past during war and so on. What's the process that you go through training these people?
Well, first of all is to identify the location where conflict has taken place. And then we make sure that we have leaders, the local leaders who work with us. I mean, we use the local leaders now to explain to us the very need on the ground. And once they do that, then we formulate a curriculum from our end, and we go down to the community through the assistance of the local leaders. And one of the things that we use the local leaders is because they will guide us in ways of mobilizing the people, the different tribal groupings, different religious groupings, and they bring for us in a gathering. It can be a conference, it can be a workshop, a seminar, and then we now give them the training. And the first bit of the training that we do is normally called trauma healing and recovery, a process where you're bringing like everybody, and then they share out. They share out their experiences, their difficulties, and in the process of sharing out, they are venting out. You know, the wound is like venting out the pain through sharing, and then the healing just happens in the training.
Yeah.
And so that's the first approach that we use, and later on that gives birth to what we call reconciliation. And then later forgiveness. So those are the processes that we pretty much used over the years.
Talking of forgiveness, we have had people saying, maybe I have forgiven, but I have not forgotten. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we have experienced, you know, it's very difficult for people just to go forgive each other, you know, just in one day.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is a process.
Yeah.
And so when we even train, we don't tell them, you just have to forgive each other right now. It's after they share out, and some of them even literally weep in the workshops, in the conferences. And that now communicates to them within themselves, and then later on they find a way of forgiving. Forgiving becomes the most important part for us. Forgetting, you know, we are human beings, and sometimes, well, we can forgive, but it's not easy to forget. But now forgiving and forging ahead, yeah, that's the point.
Okay,
Yeah.
so mention some of the achievements that you have had as Alam.
Alam has done a lot of achievement by the grace of God. You know, we have first of all been accepted in a lot of volatile, you know, contexts. Talk about Tana River, for example. Talk about Mount Elgon. Talk about Kakuma refugee camp. Talk about Kibera, the informal settlement area of Kenya. The acceptance level is one of the things that we say we really have done achievement. Achievement in terms of gaining the rapport of the grassroots community is one of the achievements that we can say that we've done. And another thing is communities just coming to us and telling us that we are being healed, we are being reconciled because Alam, you came and stood in between us. I want to give an example of Mount Elgon. You'll be surprised that the Mount Elgon community, the moment they hear Alam, African Leadership and Reconciliation Ministries, it's a sense of relief for them. Because they're saying that 5 years ago, or about 6 years ago, when Alam intervened during the Sabot Land Defense Force circumstance of conflict, where a lot of people were killed, Alam was the one that intervened. And the intervention that Alam did now united the community of Mount Elgon. And now they are saying that our children are going to school because of alarm. Our women are going to fetch firewood from the forest confidently because of the intervention that alarm did during that period of time. And so this is an achievement. Seeing a tribe, Orma and Pokomo, sit together and think a way forward together in Tana River region is a great achievement for Alam, because in 2012, over 30,000 people were displaced, only in Tana River region. Hundreds of them were killed, bloodbath situation. But right now, because of the trainings and the intervention that Alam did, they are sitting down together and forging a way forward. So that's a great achievement that I can talk about.
Nice. Now, lastly, as a person, individual, what drives you?
Talking about the drive, I remember myself years ago, like about 10 years ago, as a Christian, there was this prayer that I made, and I remember praying to God to make me an agent of peace and reconciliation across the world. And now joining Alam was, and acting at the capacity of peace building and reconciliation was like a prayer answered for me. And so because that became like now my number one. My number one drive was the passion, the enthusiasm, and the oomph that I had to just carry on the peace building activities, not necessarily in Kenya, but across the world. That was what my prayer talked about. But now when I'm doing these peace building activities across Kenya, it's something that I'm doing it out of my inner self. And so it just comes out automatically. There's no force of it, you know, notwithstanding any other thing. Yeah, just the drive inside me. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have come to the end of the show. We've had some candid conversation with some of the experts from ALAM, which is Africa Leadership and Reconciliation Ministries. Until next time, keep watching ParastatalTV. I have been your host, Mugore Kamau. God bless you.